Hi, welcome to AdRoll Live. I'm Laura Finity. I'm the multimedia content manager at AdRoll, and we do these live streams about once a month at the moment, where we chat with loads of experts, various direct-to-consumer companies, and bring you basically a little bit of a mix of information from the world of marketing. And it can be anything from emails and shipping right the way through to products. So thank you so much for joining. If you're watching at the moment, we are live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube, and we're live on LinkedIn at the moment, as well as Twitter, I think. So wherever you're watching us from, you can get in touch while we're live. You can ask us questions. You just need to reply to whatever thread you're watching on, and your comments can come in here and we can get those into our speaker for today. And speaking of speakers, we have one of our very own from AdRoll who's joining for the live stream today. We're chatting with Gavin Flood, who's a Senior Director of International Marketing here at AdRoll, and we're going to be covering 5 e-commerce predictions for 2021. I think, we're all kind of come into this year with a little bit of apprehension, not knowing what's coming next after the somewhat shell shock of last year. But hopefully we can read the trends. Here at AdRoll, we're always in touch with our customers and businesses and people also who are purchasing and shoppers. So we're hoping we can bring our insights to help you figure out maybe what you might need to implement for the year ahead for your business. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Gavin to the live stream. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Laura? Thanks for having me.
No, welcome. Well, we've been meaning to get you on a live stream for a while, and it's taken around about 9 months or something for it to happen, but we got here in the end. So thanks so much for joining.
No problem. All good things and all of that.
So tell us a little bit first about yourself, your role at AdRoll and just a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure, of course. So I am based in our Dublin office, which my accent is probably the giveaway to that. So what I do is I lead our international marketing function in the business. I'm also head of our EMEA office, so I wear a couple of different hats across the business. Personally, when you think about marketing, I've had a career in marketing, maybe you would call it a vocation, for almost 20 years now. And in that time, I've been very lucky to work across a lot of different sectors with a lot of great people and a lot of great brands. So from gaming and technology to sports entertainment and cars, I've been there, done that, and collected a few t-shirts on the way. Right now, in terms of my role at AdRoll, as international lead for marketing, I would say you best describe how I operate is that I would cut across those 3 core functions of marketing that we have in our business, which is product marketing, growth, and brand. So working to bring the most appropriate campaigns and programs to life in our international markets, taking them, adding to them, localizing them, and really engaging our customers in international markets is really what that's all about. So a healthy level of perspective, strong engagement, good stakeholder management, they're all the things that I need to rely on to be able to do that job.
I would say, just on, outside of work, you're a very avid runner. You're definitely, you do a ton of marathons and you're always on the run. You're also, we discovered at Christmas on the team that you're really into Secret Santas, like the enthusiasm you had for that, and definitely for the festive season. You're a Christmas enthusiast. And also, you're working across with us here in San Francisco, and you're kind of always amazing in terms of just like you're like kind of online, and it feels like you sometimes don't sleep, but hopefully you do.
No. If I'm not sleeping, I'm running, or vice versa. So it's like the old saying: it's hard to catch a moving target.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned then about perspective, like that's a big part of what you do, and you're kind of always in thinking of perspective. So before we kind of get into the five predictions that we have for 2021, what did we see in 2020?
We saw a lot in 2020, but I think you kind of touched on this earlier when you said, we're not too sure what to expect in 2021, and that is true. But we can take some strong signals from 2020 in terms of what that will look like broadly. So in doing this look back, what I tried to do is think about things that for me were going to have just that lasting structural and behavioral impact on things. That's really important. What are the things that we can build off that are not fads, that are going to be really impactful and that businesses really need to solve for right now? So as I talk about 2020 and what happened, that's the kind of the context that I've looked to try frame all of this up in. And the first one is a pretty obvious one, and it is the explosion of new D2C brands that we saw globally last year. And that was down to a combination of circumstance, necessity, and accessibility. That's what drove all of that. Circumstance, necessity, people's personal circumstances changing was obviously a key reason, and we're not going to dive into that now. But the accessibility one is really, really interesting. And, one of the first things that you look at when you think about this is that stat that's up on the screen right now. And that is the fact that there's been 129% growth in e-commerce sales in the US and Canada alone since April of last year. And that kind of ticks the first box when you think about, why would you set up a business? It's market opportunity, and it's there in abundance. And the second box that you would tick is around kind of barriers to entry. And right now, barriers to entry, they're just on the floor because there is just so many affordable tools for website hosting, for e-commerce storefront creation. Again, we do see some of them listed out here, and your ability to be able to plug and play with these is just so easy now, and that's a real enabler for businesses, and being able to just literally overnight go from an idea to a functioning business. And the third one is kind of connected to this, and that is your ability to be able to scale your business and scale at pace. E-commerce brands, they know the customer, they know the product, but they don't necessarily know how to kind of put the two together to drive scaled growth. So platforms like Facebook, like Google, like Amazon, and yes, AdRoll as a platform to help brands grow their business through marketing automation, are there to help these fledgling e-commerce brands really get on a strong and sustainable path to growth. And I always like to use examples, and I think a really interesting example that ties all of this together over the last while has been the example actually on my sister. This really strikes very close to home. 12 months ago, she was working in a customer support role in Dublin Airport. Really happy in what she was doing, and just had a side interest in making and producing candles. 12 months on, again, out of necessity and circumstance, she has been driven to set up her business. She is now set up on Shopify, running her business, leaning into platforms to help her grow and scale everything that she's doing, and starting to see real growth, and is seeing a lot of excitement around the journey she's on that. So it's really, really interesting to see that, and how a lot of what changed in the market has helped drive that. And she's probably listening, so if I don't give the company a plug, she will kill me. It's for the record, Ion Candle Company, if anybody's wondering. So that's first job of the day done. So that's really the kind of the first trend that emerged last year, and it's one that is pretty omnipresent. Kind of connected to that then, I suppose, is the phenomenon of shopping locally. We hear it almost like as a throwaway remark, but what does that really mean, and what are some of the numbers behind that? Well, you see some of them here. 40% want to shop locally to support their community. That's a figure that is up 5%, 5 percentage points. No, more. 8 percentage points. It's up from 32% a year prior in 2019. And that's really interesting, but that isn't of itself a key driver of this. When you dig in a little bit deeper in terms of why people want to shop local, there's an awful lot of interesting insight around this. Everything from the different range that's available, being able to get products you wouldn't be able to get elsewhere, a more immersive shopping experience. They're really, really important pieces. And I suppose the takeaway around all of this is that if you are a brand and you are getting a lot of community support, don't rely on the goodwill of your community alone. Creating good experiences, engaging with your customers is really important, and that's a key driver. And that goodwill from a community support will come after that. So that's the second trend. And when we get into the 2021 predictions, you'll start to see how we kind of connect the dots between these and what we can expect for the year ahead and beyond. And the The third trend is really down to what I've described as kind of supply chain strain. And yeah, try saying that fast 3 times.
It's a tongue twister.
Not an easy thing to do. Um, but when you kind of reflect on this and you put yourself in your customer's shoes, or just think about yourself as a consumer for a moment, 12 months ago, next day delivery, it was just literally you lived and died by your ability to be able to, fulfill that promise.
Mm,
And how things have shifted in 12 months is pretty phenomenal. Anything more than 48 hours back then was unacceptable. Now 72 hours is a miracle. So how we've recalibrated around expectations and that has been really, really interesting. And that's not anything that's going to change anytime soon. We are still adjusting to the impact of fulfillment and deliveries around COVID, and increased health and safety measures around that, adding to times. Even the whole policy around returns is impacted on this. And then in Europe, of course, we've had Brexit layered on all of this as well in
mm,
terms of what that means. So that's a trend that has emerged and emerged very significantly. And again, we'll talk a little bit about how you solve for that. But an interesting thing to emerge out of all of this, and in adversity comes opportunity at times. And you've seen a lot of brands who've kind of reacted to this and looked at low stock or no stock as an opportunity to, build some interest and some desire amongst customers in terms of messaging, and look at a way to try and engage people further with the brand in terms of wanting to get notification when something's back in stock, or for recommendations around other product lines. So there's been some really, really interesting and creative ways that brands have used this challenge to engage customers. So yeah, that's there for me are kind of like the three big trends in 2020 that will drive a lot of what we will see in 2021 and beyond.
Well, I do want to say we are just live at the moment. So if anybody who is watching has any kind of trends that they notice themselves within your own company, your own work, we'd love to hear them. So you can just pop those into the comments and then we'll get them there. I know we have a few people who have commented already. Hi to Richard Wood, who is just saying about agreeing in terms of just like a crazy growth. Yeah, like certainly over 2020. Nobody really knew what to expect, and the amount of growth was almost as shocking as anything else that we could have expected. So do get in touch with us. But then moving on to looking into what trends we think we're going to see in e-commerce for 2021.
Yeah, and just a quick shout out and hello to Rich. I hope all is well in Manchester, and just thrilled that you're not heckling from the sideline. So thanks for that. So yeah, 2021 and beyond is again, you almost like need a crystal ball to try and think about what that will mean in terms of specifics. But I think thematically there are a lot of things that we can look at and know that these are going to be big trends. Where they land and what is the implication of them is still to be figured out. But I think we can kind of talk quite broadly around what they might be. And the first one for me is this whole concept of the battle for share of heart and how important that's going to be, and as important as share of wallet in 2021. And it kind of stands to reason if you think about the 2020 trends and the explosion of D2C brands that have come to market. You are going to have to think about that customer engagement piece much, much more deeply than you might have previously. Interesting stat around this is that 75% of US consumers in 2020 tried new brands, but only 41% actually ditched them, didn't hang around, one experience and then moved on. Right now, I think we can all relate to our own businesses and the things that we are doing, that we are still hyper focused on increasing conversions, bottom of the funnel tactics, getting the customer in, getting that sale executed and moving on to the next one. That is important. I'm not advocating that we ditch that, forget about that. That's what moves the business. But you have to be focused on the entire customer journey, or you're already starting to lose in the long term. Laura, you know that we talk an awful lot about like the flywheel versus the funnel, and that flywheel approach to engaging customers is making sure that you have constant momentum around customers being engaged, re-engaged, being delighted, becoming advocates for your brand, bringing others in as they do that, and being very highly disposed towards purchase and repurchase. And it is that mindset that is really, really important in terms of how you think about your business, rather than that kind of just transactional sales funnel approach to how you run a business. Really, really important. And there are a couple of things as you think about, ways to try and solve for this. And one of the things that I want to do in terms of talking about the tips, or sorry, talking about the trends for 2021, is maybe kind of give people some actionable tips that they can kind of take and use in the day to day. And when you think about, share of mind as well as wallet, or share of heart as well as wallet, some of the things that you should be thinking about doing is social proof. Social proof is so incredibly important in terms of driving engagement and goodwill. Reviews. On the screen here, you'll see an example of some reviews on Yotpo. And I suppose the starting point on this is that people buy from people. It's a cliche, but it's also a truism. So the power of reviews is so incredibly important in terms of your ability to be able to use that to drive engagement and bring people into your brand and immerse them in the brand. And again, think about your own circumstances, how you might investigate and interrogate a new brand that you're considering purchasing from. What are the signals that you look for? How do you validate your choice? And more often than not, reviews will play into that in some way, shape, or form. So working with platforms, driving reviews, making that accessible, really important. Connected to that is encouraging customers to just simply share more photos of your product. Photos bring your product or your service to life. There is an intangibility around that you just cannot get from product descriptors. And the more color that you can bring to your brand, the more that helps in terms of engaging people. And again, just think about this from your own experiences, just being able to see how a product is used, is consumed, is experienced is really, really important. And again, an example from my sister's business, she has seen a huge amount of her customers buy candles to put in their home office at home. She had initially thought that all the focus was going to be around, the dining room, the kitchen, areas of shared living. But having candles in the office where you're spending an awful lot of time is something that she hadn't seen, and it's encouraging people to share those photos to give context and perspective and help people think about how they might consume that product as well. And then connected to that is stories, using stories to try and help again bring your brand to life. Some verticals will lend themselves this more to others, but your ability to be able to have customers not only share their stories but experience and give voice to that, really, really important. So social proof in all of those forms, really, really important. So that's that's the first trend that I think is going to be big in 2021.
Like you say there, I mean, we just shared a kind of a example of customer stories, and this one is a very kind of, I guess, straightforward way of telling stories, especially through video in this sense for 23andMe. So it's like DNA and ancestry and stuff like that. But obviously storytelling can be way more than just literally somebody telling their story in that sense, right? So, and as you say, just depends on the vertical. It's like figuring out what works best for your company and what story you want to tell.
Yeah, totally.
For the next trend, we've got kind of the cookie is crumbling.
Yes, the cookie is crumbling. It's all about the demise of third-party cookies, and I can almost hear people just groaning around this in terms of kind of, oh God, no. It's real. It's happening. The departure of browser-based tracking, it is upon us, and in early 2022, Google are going to pull that big lever and phase out third-party cookies on Chrome. It's a shift that will have a huge impact on how brands track, target, and engage with customers. And whether you're just beginning to, think about the impact of these changes, or are already shifting to more first-party data sources and ways of engaging customers, the shift to the cookieless world is coming, and it's going to be a major consideration for your business. There are some hurdles that you will have to overcome for this, but there's also some positive kind of connected to this. The big difference between how I kind of distinguish between first party and third party data is almost kind of like first party is kind of like quality third party is almost like reach, so your ability to kind of really go deep on a quality score with your customers, like really understand their behavior, how they interact with your brand, using all the signals you have from your CRM. Really, really powerful way of being able to create more joined up experiences with your brand. And again, that starts to feed back towards that first trend, which is all about, winning the hearts of your customers. Customer experience is key to that. And first party data is a really important way of allowing you to unlock that. So that is a positive. And if this does nothing else then act as a forcing function to push people in that direction, then that's a positive. And as you start to think about, ways to move into this space and start to think about, your ability to leverage other channels and other ways of operating to think about a world beyond this, email is one that I think is a huge opportunity here. Email and email newsletter, which I would suspect every brand has in some way, shape, or form. And if you don't, I think creating a newsletter is really, really important. But then it's what you do with it and how you leverage it in your business. And I like to think about email and our email newsletter almost like a product. So like any product, you would look at, what are the features, what are the benefits that people really like about this? What are the things that are good about it? What are the things that are bad about it? How can we improve the type of content that we deliver, the promotions that we have, and get some signals back in terms of whether people like that or not? What are other brands doing that are good, and how can we learn from that as well? So your ability to be able to do that and grow the value of your email newsletter, that's going to have a cascading effect in terms of having people having more signups, having people share it more, and having people again be an advocate for that in terms of growing your list and building your house list in that regard. And that's really, really important. So to do that, you need to obviously have that growth mindset around improvement of your newsletter, and not just think about this as something I need to get out every third week of the month. And then you start to need to look at signals and data beyond just deliveries and unsubscribes. How many people are opening it? How many people are? How much time are they spending on it? How many times are they coming back to read and reread your articles? Where you maybe put your share buttons, what has the greatest impact in terms of people's willingness to share? Understanding that, testing it, really important in terms of being able to develop your newsletter for your business as a strategic asset. Really important. People will say newsletters, they're not sexy, but functionally incredibly impactful, and if done well, a real differentiator. And I challenge everybody. I'm sure you can all think of 3 or 4 newsletters that you really, really like and look forward to getting. Now, there's a plethora of them out there, and you probably have plenty that every time you get it, you say, I'm going to unsubscribe to it. Your aim should be to be one of those top 5, the ones that people look forward to getting to. And if you can have that mindset, I think you'll add real value.
Yeah, I feel like email in 2020, prior, maybe a few years ago, people were like, oh, email's dying out, email's kind of dead. And it's like, it's really shone through as just being like, especially in terms of trying to just connect with your customer. It's like, 2020 is just kind of, it's like a beacon through all of that. And then, as you say, in terms of just like improving on that and understanding better and layering it up and just testing, it's only going to become a much more valuable asset to your communication tools that you use with your customers. So awesome advice.
Yeah, and it's such a flexible tool as well. Your ability to combine it with ads to create that better experience, and the impact that has in terms of conversion. It's incredible. So yeah, email. It ain't gone away.
It's not going anywhere. Well, our third prediction for 2020 is fulfillment as a competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, another really interesting one, and we talked about one of the trends of 2020 and that strain on global supply. So you flip that around and you look at what is going to be a trend in 2021. It's about turning that potentially limiting factor into a competitive advantage. Globally, 64% of consumers, they want orders shipped for free. And with the costs around that soaring, brands do really need to think about how they turn this into a strategic asset, or at the very least manage expectations around this. It's really, really important. You know, you see some data here that is from Shopify around people's expectations around that. You know, 64% of consumers want orders shipped for free, 67% expect it either same day or 2-day delivery. I know that's slightly contrary to the point I made earlier around the recalibration of expectations. This data is about 4 months old, so there's a bit of a lag connected to it. And then you know, 72% of brands, you know, they want you to use sustainable packaging. So, you know, all of those pieces combined are really, really important drivers of all of this. And the sustainability one is a really, really interesting one. I think it's one that where there's real opportunity to go deep here. And you know, you have an example here in terms of, you know, retail and the call out around the packaging being compostable. An interesting stat is that 75% of US consumers, they're more likely to buy a product that is packaged sustainably. Many will actually pay a premium. You know, that focus on zero waste packaging, where all materials are used, reused, or recycled, is a really, really important point. And a lot of people are very conscious of it. And again, we've all had that experience. You know, put yourself in the consumer's shoes. We've all had deliveries whereby you kind of just your excitement about what you're receiving is a little bit offset by the fact that you look at just all of the waste that you need to try and get rid of connected with that. And it does, you know, it does diminish the experience in a lot of it, and people are very conscious about that. So that piece is really, really, really important. So yeah, fulfillment as a competitive advantage, whether that be around, you know, your ability to, you know, to create more sustainable options, is important. But some tangible tips that I think everybody can take and use pretty much immediately are, firstly, you know, establish free shipping thresholds to protect profit margins. Really, really important. Be very upfront and very clear around what that means. You know, is that market specific? Is it spend specific? Is it a combination of the two? You know, set the parameters on that and be very deliberate around it so that you are delivering a good experience and a transparent experience, but, you know, protecting your own margins as well. The second one would be, you know, use automation to manage expectations in your checkout experience. You know, again, you will know markets and regions whereby there might be impacts around fulfillment for any number of reasons. You know, you are the person who has a view on that based on being very close to your business. So, you know, use geosignals to try and build that into the experience in the checkout, whereby, you know, if you are coming from a certain area, whether that's postcode based, zip code based, your ability to be able to you know, manage expectations around that in terms of your messaging, again, really, really important. And again, you know, think about the packaging as an angle for reviews. You know, bringing this back to the previous tips around social proof. You know, if you are making a play around your packaging and that being a point of differentiation, why not look to try and focus that by way of your reviews, you know, your social shares and the pieces that you're asking consumers to try and focus on. So yeah, that's fulfillment. Again,
I feel like I'm definitely a prime example of, you know, just going to packaging. I was somewhat so impressed with a company called Parade, and they do. I kind of love their whole like look and what they stand for. They actually do like underwear, but their everything about their packaging is as sustainable as possible. Compostable bags, you know, cardboard container, and not only that, but it's just very well branded in itself. And the kind of unboxing experience was just really delightful. So much so that I was like, I want to record this. And because also, you know, we work where we work and we are very interested in how and what brands decide to do with their packaging, with their delivery, you know, and they had some real lag on delivery. They were struggling with the shipping aspect, especially during, like, you know, 2020 and towards the end of the year. But it was still such a delightful experience that I absolutely advocate for them. And then also I was actually filmed like an unboxing of that because I was so impressed of how it all worked. So, I think that, if you're not someone like us who are working particularly like, in an environment where we're looking at different customers, businesses all the time, I still think it goes to show really that, like, really you can just delight a customer so easily with that kind of stuff. And I'm willing to pay that little bit more. So I'm the prime example. I'll pay a little bit more for that, for the peace of mind, knowing that I'm perhaps doing the better thing for the environment or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, one of the sub-trends within that is, the focus to being much more deliberate around that. We see brands who, talk about, making a contribution and asking customers to make a contribution towards good causes to help offset that.
Mm-hmm.
But those brands who kind of really step up and think deliberately around this and make it a core element of their offering will definitely stand to win. And then within that, it's getting the balance right as well. Receiving the package, opening and experiencing it. That's a key element of the brand experience in the D2C world. So you have to walk that line. You have to tread it very, very carefully in terms of getting that balance right. But I think it's a huge opportunity, and I think we'll see a huge amount of innovation and creativity in this space in 2021.
Awesome. Well, for our fourth prediction for 2021.
Yes, retention, top priority. Again, you'll see that there's no real revelations in any of the trends that I'm calling out. They do make sense, but I'm hoping that, in terms of, digging a couple of layers on these, there's just some interesting perspective and viewpoints for brands to consider. And when it comes to retention, where we are right now is that it has overtaken acquisition and conversion as a top priority for many, many businesses. And we all hear the concept of the leaky bucket and how historically improving customer retention by X% leads to Y% increase in profits and sales, and that can range anything from 5% increase in here leads to 25 to 90% increase over here. So listen, bottom line, we know that it is a lot easier and a lot more not easier, sorry, I won't say that. It's a lot more cost effective to keep a customer than it is to try find a new one. And that was true before, but it's even truer now. You heard my comment earlier around 75% of consumers having tried a new brand in 2020, but only 41% didn't return. That in itself is a pretty stark statistic, and one that should make people sit up and take note. So, some top tips to help people orientate around this are, firstly, subscriptions. They can boost retention and produce, recurring revenue. Right now, only 15% of online shoppers receive products on a recurring basis today. And, I get it, not every product has the ability to be able to think about that right now or figure out what that offering might be. This is an interesting one. Again, you see Beanbox and how they're thinking about it in terms of the bundling and the packaging they're doing. Again, this is a brand where you're consuming and reconsuming that product on an ongoing basis. So subscription may be a little bit easier to build in there, but there are creative ways of looking at this. If you have a range, if you have something that people might want to experience on a rolling basis, thinking about how you would package that up into a subscription offer is a really interesting way of looking at that. And another interesting stat that's come from Shopify is that 75% of direct-to-consumer businesses say they will offer subscriptions by 2023. So you heard it here first. This is a real emerging trend, and one that a lot more direct-to-consumer brands will be looking to explore and exploit. And I would go as far as to say we'll probably be thinking about new product lines and the direction they take with this in mind. The second one is all around email. Again, showing its flexibility and its impact to the business. Personalized email experiences, your ability to be able to leverage email to drive the customer experience, whether that be in terms of connecting that to their behavior online, or to be able to really hone in on their preferences and deliver that as a recurring piece of value in your newsletter. really, really important. And then the last one, and this is actually one that we hear a lot from our own customers, is the value and power of text messaging, and how important that is as a channel for engaging customers. In a lot of instances, quite functionally, in terms of just giving heads up on delivery times, updates on product shipping, etc., and things like that. Because the stat around this is that 90% of all text messages are opened in 3 minutes. So that's really interesting. But how do you build on that? And there are ways without being completely and utterly sales focused on it. So think about text messaging, think about how you might look at ways of using that to engage your customers. Really interesting piece, and lots of scope there.
And then also just in terms of, loyalty programs, as an example here with Sephora, for example, which is obviously a big brand, but certainly one that plenty of direct to consumer, perhaps smaller or more kind of growing brands could look out for as some inspiration. But tying together, as you said, with subscriptions, loyalty programs and subscriptions can also even combine. So you can have loyalty programs within your subscriptions, and all these ways that might just try and retain and engage your customers to stick with you and to be loyal fans of your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right to call that out. The two of them can combine and deliver a hybrid solution. Brown Thomas, which is one of the biggest retailers here in Ireland, they have a really, really interesting concept around their loyalty, which is based on the subscription model as well, whereby spend thresholds are connected to your ability to unlock different levels of service, which is everything from a stylist to concierge shopping experience when things are opened up, to heads up on new lines, pre-access to sales, all of that stuff. So again, there's so many different ways that you can package this up and connect it to spend and respend as well. So lots of inspiration to be drawn from examples like Sephora and Brown Thomas, and many, many others like that.
And then our fifth and final prediction for 2020 is brands that integrate.
Yeah, about brands that integrate new stay-at-home trends into the shopping experience, and how they'll be the ones that win big. It's just struck me now as this one has come up and it's our last one. I should say I've not put these in any particular order. I think they're all equally important, and they all feed into each other. So there's a high level of overlap between all of these, and you'll start to see some patterns emerging across all of them as well. That there are some common themes. So I just wanted to call that out before I dive into this one, in case anybody was expecting a big reveal at the end, whereby I say, if one thing you need to do, it's X. No, I'm sorry, you need to do all of this stuff. That's being a business owner, it's not easy, it's tough, and it's there's a lot connected to it. So yeah, the this whole trend around those that are able to integrate their experiences with what we call the new normal are going to win big is a really, really interesting one as well. 12 months into all of this, there is a realization that we have a lot of learned behavior that is going to stick with us when we emerge from all of this. Because 75% of consumers who said that the experience they have now is going to influence how they purchase and repurchase into the future. So stickiness and people's willingness to come back is going to depend on how satisfied consumers are with their new digital experiences. And right now there's a lot of mixed messages around this. So for example, in Italy, 60% who shopped online during the pandemic, which is a big increase over previous numbers, but only 10% said they were actually satisfied with their experience. Is that culturally based? Is that just based on the fact that it was actually a poor experience? That's still being understood. But there's a lot that has happened in the last 12 months that has forced us to adapt, and how we think about that in the consumer experience is really, really important. So if you think about kind of top tips around this is probably the best way of trying to contextualize this example. So for example, AR, we are now confined to home, and our ability to actually be able to touch and feel and experience a product is limited. So our ability to use AR to create not only two-dimensional experiences, but real depth to three-dimensional experiences is really, really important. IKEA have always been ahead of the curve in this, and the video you played just there is just a really good example of a brand who have leveraged AR to give context and perspective around their offering, and the more that brands can do that, the more they're going to win. And again, a phrase I use a lot is put yourself in your customer's shoes. What do people want to see? And I've lost count of the amount of times where I'm looking at a product whereby I might go, if only I could see that angle, or if they just show it from over here, it would be really great. And I'm doing all of this kind of lining things up, and I'm nearly there. I'm kind of going, yeah, feels good, but maybe not this time. So think about that. Think about what are consumers looking for? How do you help bring your product to life and give that depth to it? And AR is a really, really great way of doing that. And it doesn't need to be at the scale of an IKEA. That's
Yeah.
the thing I
That's
should.
definitely the challenging thing. They have a lot of resources, a lot more money. Obviously, their AR is, it's probably a taste of what we'll all be able to have in the future. Ideally, it'll become cheaper and more, But certainly, I think like just seeing that the example, for example, with the shopping there that we showed a few times, this is perhaps achievable, especially depending on what your limit of product is and what you're trying to showcase. But there are different ways you could work.
Absolutely, and you show that example of the handbag, and even simple things like taking a good three-dimensional view of it. Now, like, how can you increase that experience right now if somebody is buying a bag? You want to see what stuff looks like when it's in it. So drop a couple of things in it and see how that kind of changes the where does it bulge, where does it move, and these are all things that people would do if they are in the store. So how can you replicate that in the online experience? And that's really what you're trying to think about, and you will take incremental steps towards that. But AR, thinking about how the role that can play, really important. Other more simple, straightforward ones that you can kind of do pretty quickly is, connect your online checkout with a POS system that enables fulfillment options like local delivery, local pickup. Really important. Again, I've quoted a lot from Shopify, and you see a Shopify example here. They have data that shows that people are 13% more likely to complete their online purchase and spend 23% more if they have the ability to be able to kind of select a pickup option as part of the fulfillment. So really important stat. And then the last one is just around upgrading your checkout experience. Again, thinking about the ability for people to go and purchase and remove barriers. One-tap checkouts for a faster experience, really important, allowing customers to save their payment options, eliminating the add to cart function, so people being able to kind of go and purchase straight from the product page. All really important incremental improvements that you can make to remove barriers and help customers have a better experience and ultimately purchase and repurchase with you. So that was a quick splash dash run through the year that was, and potentially the year that it will be ahead of us, Laura, and in terms of my view of the world anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like obviously we've covered a lot in terms of just like as of kind of like from a higher level, and all of these topics we could pretty much do a live stream on like every single one of them and break it down even further, for all of the topics that kind of are wrapping into this, what we think is going to come ahead for 2021. But of course, at Adwell, we do have a ton of resources. We have blogs in which we're always updating and sharing information. And I will add some links and some resources to the chat for wherever you're watching, because we are on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter at the moment live. So we're going to kind of get some of those resources out in case you do want to read and see more information. But for now, although say thank you so much, Gavin, for joining and talking through the predictions for 2021. I'm looking forward to, as you mentioned, the data we looked at today, some of it's perhaps from 3-4 months ago, which the speed at which things have been moving the past 12 months might almost feel old, but I think this is really a good indication for where we're heading.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, as you said, there's a lot of resources out there that people can tap into. And, you know, we build resources to help people figure out these challenges, e-commerce brands figure out these challenges. So definitely do check them out on our blog. And if anybody just wants to connect with me and ask any questions, get some more perspective, feel free, do that on LinkedIn. And I would be happy to chat on any and all of this.
Awesome. I was about to volunteer you for that exactly. To get in touch with you on LinkedIn for Gavin Flood, and then you know, people. I know everybody on the team is always really happy, willing to engage in conversations, share advice.
Mhm.
That's, you know, we really want to be involved in everything and anything marketing, e-commerce, and direct to consumer. So please do get in touch.
Do that.
Um,
Yeah, that is so important because it helps us learn and grow as well. So that's key. So this is kind of, it's reciprocal.
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gavin. We'll hopefully see you again soon.
Cool. Thanks, Laura. Cheers, everyone. Bye now.
Thanks. Take care. There we go. That's Gavin Flood joining us here for the live stream. Just going to show you there, in case you're looking for how to spell his name, to find him on LinkedIn. The Senior Director of International Marketing with us here at AdRoll. Wonderful. Thank you so much for watching today. We're going to wrap in just a minute here. Again, I just want to let you know that if you want to find any information, or if you want to, you know, check out any of our blog resources, anything like that, you can just go to our website, which is adroll.com. And then /resources can take you to our webinars, our, you know, we have a podcast, we've got all this, we've got all this stuff, blogs, we've got tons of resources for you to check out. So please go to adroll.com for more information there. But all there is for me to say for now is thank you for joining, and I look forward to seeing you again soon for another AdRoll Live.